Hello, everyone. I am Umar. I welcome you all on behalf of PRISA. We have a session today. We have two wonderful speakers. The first one is Professor Dr. Mohammed Nuruzzaman, who is a professor of political science at North South University, Dhaka, Bangladesh. He earned his Ph.D. from the University of Alberta, Canada, and has taught at universities in Canada, Bangladesh, and Kuwait. His expertise includes international relations theory, global political economy, human rights, and Middle Eastern and South Asian politics. He has published in top-tier journals and received prestigious fellowships, including from Durham University and KFAS. Dr. Nuruzzaman currently serves as managing editor of the Current Research Journal of Social Sciences and Humanities and is a non-resident senior fellow at the Hong Kong Research Center for Asian Studies. Before I request Professor Nuruzzaman, let me allow you to introduce the second speaker as well, who will speak after Professor Dr. Nuruzzaman. Dr. Erum Ashraf holds a PhD in International Relations from Swansea University, UK, where she currently resides. Her doctoral research explored societal security, social identity, and the Uyghur Millet Minzu. Her current work focuses on China-Pakistan relations, particularly the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor within the Belt and Road Initiative, with the special interest in the role of gender and regional dynamics. The chapter, China-Pakistan Relations, Gender and the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, was published in Pakistan, China, and the Belt and Road Initiative. She has also published the Diplomat, Development Advocate, Pakistan, UNDP, and Dirasat, addressing regional connectivity, diplomacy, and geopolitical shifts. She's currently working on a book with Bloomsbury Academic exploring China-Pakistan relations through a gender lens. I would now be requesting Professor Dr. Mohammed Nuruzzaman for his presentation on China's engagements and influence in South Asia. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good evening from, good afternoon from Bangladesh. And I think it's midday in London. And I welcome all of you to this special discussion session on China's engagement and influence in South Asia. Before I start my presentation formally, please allow me to upload the PowerPoint slide document here. I'm just sharing it with you. Okay. Okay. Can you please put it at the center like before, Doctor? Can you see this?
Yes, it is visible, Professor.
Okay, so it's in the center, right? Can you see
yes,
me
it
also?
Is. Yes, we can see you as well.
Okay, thank you very much. So that's the title, China's engagement and influence in South Asia. And as you know, this is a huge subject. Hundreds of books, journal articles, and other policy briefs have been produced on this particular topic. So what I am planning to do is to briefly introduce the topic in the format of PowerPoint presentation. And after I am done, Dr. Erum will make her presentation. And hopefully after that, we will be able to answer questions, also comments from our participants. So let's go to the second slide. So here I have put actually just a few points as introductory remarks. So as you know, China, as the second largest economy in the world, is not just a neighbor of South Asia, it is also a neighbor of the whole world. And most importantly, China acts as a very, very significant actor and creates tremendous influence on the geopolitical and geo-economic landscapes of South Asia. Think that some 20 or 30 years ago, China was not so influential, but with its recent economic boom, high rate, double-digit economic growth rate has made it so famous, so influential throughout the world. Now, in that context, today China is the prime source of public goods for all of India's smaller neighbors. And by public goods, we mean loans and credits, project financing, FDI, technological support, and other
Professor
important
Nuruzzaman,
elements of
your
cooperation.
presentation has disappeared, and we are back to the view
Huh?
where we can see you, but not the presentation.
But it is already here. I don't know what happened. So should I restart then?
No, just look at the view icon on top, and you should be able to.
View at the top right side?
Yeah, I suggest please reshare it. I think the sharing is gone.
Okay.
Reshare?
Reshare
Okay.
it.
Okay, let me see. What can I do? Okay, share again. Okay, here is the document. And here I go. Okay, is it not visible?
The presentation is still not visible. Yeah, now it is. Yes, it is now.
Okay, okay, thank you. It's a technological glitch.
Not a problem.
I'm not sure.
Please continue.
Okay, anyway, so yeah, okay. I was telling you that China is the prime source of public goods like project financing, loans and credits, direct foreign direct investment, technological support, and in all these areas, our largest neighbor in South Asia, India, falls much behind. So that probably gives China an advantage to create influence, exercise influence in the South Asian system. So now at the same time, growing Chinese influence has triggered and intensified a standoff with regional heavyweight India. Now, traditionally, especially after 1947, India has considered itself the preeminent power, the natural leader of India. But with China's generous economic support, political diplomatic support, the India-centric balance of power has been affected. So South Asia maybe theoretically is still a strategic backyard of India, but in fact, it has actually, I think, skidded up to a large extent and leaning towards China significantly. So Beijing, New Delhi, ongoing epic battle just to woo and win the hearts and minds of the smaller South Asian states is a reality in the South Asian context. I would say that it is not only affecting the regional power balance in South Asia, but also affecting the same in the Asian continental landscape. And because both Asian giant powers and peace, security, stability, instability in the Asian continent depend to a large extent on these two important, two significant powers. I'm going to the next slide now. It's some theoretical concepts. Throughout my presentation, I will be using concepts like hard power, soft power, influence. Probably you are familiar with this, but still I need to refresh some of these ideas. Now, by hard power, primarily mean and some examples may be coercive.
I'm sorry, there is some disruption, Professor Nuruzzaman. There is some disruption, maybe some issue with your internet connection. We did not hear you.
So what can we do? So internet is working fine here. It's
fine
okay.
Now it is fine. Now it is fine. Please continue.
Okay. Hard power tools also include coercive diplomacy, alliances for deterrence, etc. And then soft power, actually the non-military sources of power, the power of a nation to attract other nations, to create appeal to other nations. Now, most nations, they would like to actually influence other nations through soft power tools. And this idea of soft power came from well-known American academic Joseph S. Nye. He published a piece, a seminal piece on this concept back in 1990, defining soft power as the ability to shape the preferences of others through appeal and attraction. So culture, education, generous economic assistance, these are the tools to spread soft power, exercise soft power by a nation. And the last one is influence. Probably this is the most difficult concept to define because there is no agreed upon concept of what we actually mean by this particular concept of influence. So we usually look at elements like demographic size, geographical location, economic strength, aid and developmental assistance, cultural and historical foundations, etc., to measure, though not completely perfectly, to measure the influence any nation can exercise in its relations with other nations in the world. So just please keep in mind the three concepts that will help us better understand. And next on China's growing engagement. So we have actually two parts in this presentation. One of the first part deals with China's growing engagements in South Asia. And the second part will talk about its influence. And the third part will try to understand why India is failing to resist China's growing footprint in South Asia. So if we look at the growing engagements of China in South Asia, we can actually identify a few important points here. Number one is the infrastructure diplomacy and deepening economic ties. So China, because it competes with the US at the global level, it competes with India at the South level. So its prime tool to compete against these two powers is the Belt and Road Initiative. And except India and Bhutan, all the South Asian countries are members of the Belt and Road Initiative. And China has extended assistance to implement its BRI projects in South Asia. And let me just cite the mega project, the most significant project, China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, CPEC. Project has a total commitment of some $62 billion. Originally, it was fixed at some 46 billion, but later revised to 62 billion. And another example is the Bangladesh-China Strategic Partnership Commitment under Belt and Road Initiative. Bangladesh, after it signed the 2016 partnership agreement with China, got the commitment of some $38.05 billion. That's close to $40 billion aid commitment from China. So that means China is actually overtaking the job of recreating the infrastructure development projects in this particular South Asian region. In addition to that, Nepal, Sri Lanka, the Maldives, they are also receiving significant, but compared to Pakistan and Bangladesh, they are receiving less and less. And then the second important factor is a top trade and investment partner. By now, China has become the largest trading partner of all South Asian states, and India is no exception. And we see that if you look at the pattern of the bilateral trade transactions between China and the South Asian countries, it is heavily skewed in favor of China, meaning that the trade gaps between China and Bangladesh, for example, is heavily tilted towards China. And that creates some sorts of concern in Dhaka as well, because we export items worth less than $1 billion to China. But in return, we import goods and services worth over or approximately $20 billion. So it's a huge gap in export-import business, and we are finding our ways to close the gap, but in fact not making that much progress. And I think Pakistan should be also concerned with the same factor, the huge trade imbalance between the two countries. And all other countries, South Asian nations, are no exception. And last important factor is strategic access to the Indian Ocean. So despite India's objections, that country came up with the idea of China's strings of pearls in the Indian Ocean region. China is actually making inroads in a determined way. So it has been securing access to the Indian Ocean through modernization of port facilities. Of course, funded under the BRI, like Gawadar Deep Sea Port in Pakistan, Hambantota in Sri Lanka, Chittagong Seaport in Bangladesh, and the Burmese seaport, very difficult to pronounce, is pronounced Kayukphiu seaport. So these are some examples, and China has got ready access to all these strategically important seaports in the Bay of Bengal region and in the Greater Indian Ocean region. So India is not able to counter China's access to the Indian Ocean region. Next will be military and security engagement. This is important only for a few countries like Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Sri Lanka. Now, Pakistan happens to be the most allied South Asian nation to China. And because of its historic, age-old hostility with India, Pakistan has found China as a good strategic ally. And as China's closest military partner, Pakistan maintains high level of defense cooperation, technology transfer. The two countries are jointly producing JF-17 fighter jets. I think JF-17 fighter jets made a history in the latest air war between the two countries, India and Pakistan. And then Pakistan also receives supplies of advanced weapon systems, and China also supports its missile defense system plus nuclear program indirectly, but not directly. Anyway, Bangladesh has got a tradition from the Pakistan period, although this country got independence in 1947, but has maintained the Pakistan-China military tradition of familiarity with Chinese arms and ammunitions. As a result, the Bangladesh military buys a large, actually the most significant part of its arms and ammunitions from China, including submarines, frigates, fighter jets. And China happens to be the largest military supplier. And the military ties between the two countries continue to expand day by day. And lastly, Sri Lanka. China provides aid and training on a smaller scale to Sri Lanka and other countries like Nepal and the Maldives. And because Sri Lanka is an island state in the Indian Ocean, so Chinese naval ships usually occasionally dock at the Sri Lankan ports, invokes protest from India. So that's the picture of military engagement in China's military engagement in South Asia. Now, what tools China actually uses to expand hard power influence in South Asia? Once we complete discussion on the hard power tools, we will go back to the move ahead with the discussion on the soft power tools. So among the hard power tools, we can identify BRI, although it is also included in the soft power tool classification. So here BRI China actually has the leverage, large scale infrastructure projects to secure long-term geopolitical footholds under the BRI, because economic assistance is of course determined by geopolitical interest. So I have put BRI also as a hard power tool here in this classification. And then defense diplomacy. In fact, South Asian defense supplies completely from China, except India. India buys weapons from Russia, the US, and other countries, including Israel. That's an exception. Other South Asian countries are closely related to China. So, like China provides helps like training armed forces officials, transferring military technologies, building military academies and infrastructure to promote and solidify defense cooperation. Power projection on India-China border. You are all familiar with this. You know that India and China have the largest peaceful time military deployments along their borders, along the Himalayan corridors particularly. And China maintains military presence, so does India along their common borders. And there are territorial disputes like Aksai Chin, I think the easternmost part of Kashmir, India claims and China controls at present. And then Arunachal Pradesh, a large portion of this Pradesh was captured by the Chinese forces during the 1962 India-China war, but China voluntarily withdrew from the captured territories. And then building roads, airstrips, for deployment of troops along the Himalayan corridor, the military engagement. And power projection in the Indian Ocean, we have already mentioned 4 different seaports, and China is freely using the different ports primarily for business purposes and military purposes. Now I am moving to the next, the power tools. Now, of course, here the economic statecraft, as we define soft power, the cultural element, the economic assistance, loans, grants, concessional finance to fund free trade zones and industrial parks. So all this actually generate goodwill in all South Asian countries for China. And you would be, I think you would not be surprised to know that most Bangladeshi people, at least 85 to 90% people prefer Bangladesh's strong bilateral relations with China. In the past, the favorable opinion, India favorable opinion was high, but after the COVID-19 vaccine supply failure and the recent political developments in Bangladesh, I think a public approval for pro-India policy in Bangladesh has come down to maybe 40% or less than that. And the second on scholarship for students and cultural diplomacy. Both countries are fiercely competing in this particular area. India enjoys competitive advantages because of its historical, linguistic, cultural connections with all South Asian countries. But China has in recent years made tremendous inroads, providing cultural support, economic support, and also scholarships for students. Let me just cite one example. In 2023, India provided scholarships for some 50,000 foreign students. Out of the 50,000, 25,000 were from different South Asian countries. At the same year, China provided 500,000 scholarships to foreign students. And almost all South Asian students now can be found in different Chinese universities. Of course, as I have visited some Chinese universities, I saw more students from Pakistan compared to students from Bangladesh, Nepal, Sri Lanka, and other countries. So Pakistani students, in fact, dominate this cultural sector. But anyway, that actually speaks of deepening cultural relations, cultural ties between China and South Asia. And moving to the next slide, media influence. Compared to the Western media, I think China did not have any foothold until recently. But in the last few years, Chinese media, particularly Xinhua, CCTV, CGTN, China Radio International, they have been making deep impact on South Asian public perceptions. All these media arms are broadcasting their programs in multiple regional languages, including Bengali, Hindi, and Urdu particularly. And they also fund local journalist training programs, and China also arranges friendly media tours to promote pro-China narratives, because those journalists who visit China, after they come back to their respective countries, they usually produce positive news stories about China. And people, of course, in general are pro-China, as I have told you already, citing the case of Bangladesh and also Pakistan. And heritage and diaspora diplomacy. China is also seen involved, funding heritage, Buddhist heritage in Nepal and Sri Lanka, like rebuilding, repairing temples, archaeological, carrying out, implementing archaeological projects, all these important things. And it's creating actually favorable or pro-China public perceptions, attitudes in the south, in these two countries particularly. And this is the most important part, I think. Why can't India resist China's influence? Obviously, we have some ideas, superficial ideas, but still I would like to explain why. The number one factor is the asymmetry of power. If you compare India's economy with China's economy, there is a huge gap. China's economy currently, I think, stands at the value of some 18 trillion dollar, whereas the Indian economy, I think, stands at some 3 point trillion dollar. That means China's economy is at least 5 times bigger than India's economy. And with a small economy compared to China, India cannot hope to compete against China that effectively. Second, China's state-controlled capitalism versus India's slow pro-market economy. So until 1990, India did not start its pro-market economic reforms. So before that, it achieved a low rate of economic growth, what came to be known as the Hindu rate of economic growth. But beginning with the 1990s and thereafter, India has been consistently recording approximately 6% economic growth rate every year. And India is actually expanding its economy by way of initiating pro-market economic reforms, but still it's far behind China. And there is another important factor that Chinese economic processes like resource mobilization, technological mobilization give that country competitive edge over India. China can initiate, implement any project quickly, whereas India's bureaucratic process would not allow that. It also needs a longer time to mobilize resources. So that's another reason why India is falling behind. And geostrategic encirclement. In China now has important allies in the western part of South Asia. Pakistan, of course, is solid ties between Pakistan and China. And in the eastern front, according to India, not according to we Bangladeshis, that Bangladesh is becoming another important pillar of China's South Asia policy. So India perceives that Pakistan and Bangladesh are together helping China to encircle it within the South Asian region. That might not be the reason, I think, because Bangladesh mostly pursues a balancing policy, diplomatic balancing policy with India and Pakistan at the same time. But anyway,
Professor, you left 5 minutes.
Yeah, okay, I was also going to say this. Yeah,
I have just two slides.
All right,
I will be done. Right. Okay. Then India's reactive diplomacy. In diplomacy, regional and global diplomacy, we see India follows suit China. So, say for example, China came up with the BRI in 2013. India took another 2 years to launch Sagarmala and Sagar in 2015. So India has never come up with any proactive diplomatic strategy against China or to compete with China. And another important factor, resource constraints undercut India's capacity to deliver. And this factor I have already highlighted. India cannot even hope to catch up with China. And my last slide, I think that will be India's limited acceptability to the neighbors. The neighbors see India as an overbearing state in South Asia. India has bilateral conflicts with all South Asian countries without any exception. And there are also allegations that India interfere in the internal domestic affairs of its smaller neighbors. So coercive diplomacy, from time to time, India applies this diplomatic tool to force neighbors to comply with its demands. Say, for example, it imposed blockades on Nepal twice, the latest being in 2015 over a constitutional issue in Nepal. So that was squarely a domestic political issue, but India tried to safeguard the interest of one particular group called the Madhesis, who are culturally close to the Indians, but they happen to be Nepalese citizens. So India, I think, intervened on behalf of this particular group to project its dominance in Nepalese politics. So lack of regional conflict resolution mechanism, this is very important. SAARC has become very dysfunctional after 2014, when India refused to attend the SAARC summit in Islamabad, Pakistan. And after that, India actually preferred to come up with sub-regional cooperation mechanisms like BIMSTEC and then BBIN, this on a smaller regional scale. But this sub-regionalism is not actually helping that much, because most of the time we see that these sub-regional groupings lack effective teeth to produce results, services. And I hope that, yes, I am done. And connecting South Asia to the global geopolitical drama, all we know that South Asia is a highly contested space, with the US taking more and more interest in the South Asian region, South Asian international relations. China is competing already, and India and the US are trying to contain Chinese influence throughout the region. And there have been reflections of this particular US strategy in its bid to impose 30 to 35% tariffs on countries like Bangladesh. But eventually, Bangladesh succeeded in negotiating, bringing it down to 20%. But we don't know at what cost, because the agreement has some, I think, some disclosures. They are not made public so far. Okay, thank you very much for listening to me. I hope I have given you some preliminary ideas.
Thank you very much, Professor
Yes,
Dr.
yes.
Nuruzzaman, for a wonderfully insightful presentation. The floor is over now to Dr. Erum Ashraf for her presentation, please.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Yes. Yes. Finally, success. Right. I'm going to, do you want me to share the slides now?
Yes, please.
Yeah, if you can.
Dr. Nuruzzaman, can you please unshare your slides?
Oh, sure, definitely. Stop sharing, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, and then, I'm supposed to be doing this. Can you see anything?
No.
We still cannot see your presentation. Go to share.
Yeah, I know. I just had it done and then something happened. Windows. Oh, there we go. Can you see it now?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay, so actually my talk fits in very nicely with the soft power part of Professor Nuruzzaman about what China is doing in Pakistan, and that's what I'm looking at in terms of its diplomatic efforts. So I look at a niche area of China's awards diplomacy in Pakistan, through which they are trying to win hearts and minds. In the picture, you can see Professor Atta Rahman, who's received various medals for his scientific work. He's a chemistry professor, if somebody doesn't know, in recognition of his talent. And in the bottom picture is from 2015, President Xi Jinping visit to Pakistan, in which he gave friendship awards. These were more like the Punch Shield Friendship Awards to various Pakistani entities there. So to begin, I'm going to give two broad division of awards for the sake of time and messaging. So the Chinese awards, the friendship awards, for example, can be divided into two parts. So one is associated with the, am I repeating myself? Right. So one is associated with CPEC, which is China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, which is considered the flagship project of China's Belt and Road Initiative in Pakistan. The other one is the non-CPEC awards, which are awards given to Pakistani citizens not connected to CPEC. So, for example, for projects which are run by Chinese companies under other initiatives, such as WAPTA or whatever. So to begin with, I'm going to start with the first of those CPEC awards. It's called the Outstanding Pakistani Employee of CPEC Project. And it recognizes the work and effort of Pakistani employees working on CPEC projects whose work has been of special significance. Awards was given in 2018. Sorry, 2020, I beg your pardon. In 2020, it was done online because it was during COVID. 18 recipients were chosen for this. And for me, what was flagged up was none of them were females. And that actually resulted in the work that was published in the Routledge book last year, in which I highlighted the gender gap in their relationships between Pakistan and China, that the game-changing project of CPEC had nothing for women of Pakistan. So you can see even in the recognition of the work efforts, no Pakistani females were selected. In the second ceremony the next year, however, one was selected. The third one, by the end of 22, 2 females were selected. In 23, we noticed, or at least I noticed, that the award ceremony was not announced. Now that was interesting because there were 2 things happening. There was a change in the ambassador role for China. So China's ambassador during the previous announcements was Ambassador Nong Rong. By December 23, his time period had finished, and the new ambassador who was coming in didn't join until later. So there was this gap. But the reason why I have this is because I have created a database of these awards, Chinese awards given to Pakistani citizens. And in that, I rely on open information online and in English, and somehow these awards were no longer celebrated. So as you can see, that's a photograph from the newspaper clipping in Pakistan when these awards were announced in 22. So with the photograph, so it's a big deal. It was considered a big deal. You know, these are the people who've selected, and look at the fantastic CPEC work happening. And yet in 2023, all of a sudden, the publicity part of it has finished. And we find that individual level companies such as in Gwadar, we have the COPHC, the China Port Authority. They conducted their own awards and selected 17 of their own individual people. But collectively, these kind of events which were hosted by the Chinese embassy all of a sudden are no longer seen as published as before. But these are the projects through which, these are the awards through which China has the embassy especially has been involved in recognizing the services of Pakistani citizens working in CPEC. The next award, which is the most important award, was the CPEC Media Forum Golden Anchor Awards. Now, the CPEC Media Forum is a media forum which was created in 2015 between the Chinese embassy and a think tank in Pakistan called the CPI, China Pakistan Institute, under Senator Mushahid Hussain. Now, they then in 2018 created these awards. So the media forum collects, it's an annual media forum which collects to discuss hostility against CPEC and negative media portrayal and how collectively these can be addressed. And in 2018, it was decided that awards will be given to those projects and articles which were deemed to be very appreciative of China and CPEC within Pakistan. Now, these started in November 2018, and as you can see, the first award was given to Miss Numra Asif, who actually became the first Pakistani woman to ever receive any award from China. Unfortunately, she was the first and the only Pakistani female who has received a Chinese award for this category. So far, 5 award ceremonies have been conducted. The awards were created by China Economic Net, which is a state-affiliated, Chinese state-affiliated newspaper website for the Economic Daily, again with Pakistani judges also, and they choose not just Pakistanis but also Chinese news articles and writers who portray positive information about China and CPEC. And this is important. Again, the award ceremony, November 2018, for me was interesting. I've recently published a report with the Center for Economic and Social Progress, in which I look at the award diplomacy. And I noticed that the awards that started to be given in 2018 followed the change in government in Pakistan with Prime Minister Imran Khan and PTI taking over. And there was a very negative idea that's associated with the party initially, that they were hesitant about CPEC. There was a lot of anti-CPEC narrative in media at that time, and it was felt that perhaps these awards had something to, again, show that no, these are positive stories. The people who write positively are beneficial and are being recognized. So there is this tendency to see them connected. So the next award that I'm looking at are non-CPEC awards. So the first ones were connected to CPEC. These are non-CPEC. Again, these are connected to people who are not directly related to CPEC. And based on my database of 215 Pakistanis who've been awarded, I've divided into various professional backgrounds. So if you see natural science, 10%. So those were people like such as Professor Atta Rahman, the chemistry professor, who received those awards on the basis of the profession. But majority of them, so you can see 45% of these awards were given to media. Now, when I say media, it means journalists, editors, even owners sometimes of these media centers, including for, now you can see, hang on, let me do this. Minimize, I can't bring them down, hang on. So you can see think tanks even. So think tanks in Pakistan. So these are Pakistani think tanks who carry out research and publish positive stories on China. So their directors and sometimes chairpersons have received these awards from China. And as you can see, the majority, the larger batch, media 45%, think tanks 14%, education. And again, in education, you've got professors and directors. So these are the people who have been recognized and given awards. So these form the majority of these non-CPEC awardees as compared to business. So for example, in the business side of things, 10% have received. Miscellaneous are people like Ahmed Ali Jan. He is the grave keeper, the grave cleaner for the Chinese graveyard, which keeps the deceased of the Karakoram, those people who died in the building the Karakoram Highway, the China-Pakistan Friendship Awards. So people were like that who were recognized in 2015 when President Xi Jinping came. So those are included in miscellaneous. So when you look at the focus of the larger groups selected to receive awards from China, it's really those who disseminate positive stories about China, who share good news about China, so that inside Pakistan, goodwill is created for China. And the Belt and Road Initiative in Pakistan, CPEC, receives positive news. And this is important because if you remember, it wasn't always a rosy picture for CPEC in China, because initially there were problems of and even now there are accusations of transparency. Initial days there was a problem with Chinese labor as well. Who is getting employment under CPEC in Pakistan? Is the Chinese who are coming, doing the jobs, or Pakistanis are getting the jobs? Then there was the debt diplomacy argument being created, that Pakistan is already under debt. How much of a debt is the CPEC? So all of these narratives were creating negative image about CPEC and China within media. So in this sense, it makes sense that this is the focus of the Chinese awards. Media, think tanks, education. So those who are propagating good news and good stories about China, they've been recognized. So in conclusion, the awards that I've been in my data set, that although it's still active file is continuing, but for my work, my published work, I focused on the 10 years of CPEC. 215 Chinese awards have been given to Pakistani citizens. Now, I must make mention here, it's not just Chinese embassy who's given these awards and Chinese companies. But for example, as we saw in 2023, when there was a change in the ambassador for China, we found Chinese consulates in Lahore and Karachi. They were involved in giving these awards at a larger level. So whereas in the past, maybe they would be giving to 5 or 6 of them, all of a sudden in 23, they were giving to 50 of them. So all these are agencies from the Chinese side who recognize and have chosen individuals for their contributions to selling China and CPEC in Pakistan in that sense, and they've recognized. So from all of these, we can make an adjustment, an idea that for China, opinion makers and knowledge disseminators, especially those who present a positive image of CPEC and China inside Pakistan, are important. So hopefully this helps you understand the way Chinese influence or Chinese awards has been trying to influence and sort of the positive trend in for China and CPEC. So I'm going to end here. I'm open for questions if anybody's interested.
Thank you very much, Dr. Erum. We are now heading into the Q&A session. If you have any questions, you will raise your hand or post the question in the chat box. I take the liberty of asking the first question of Professor Nuruzzaman. We all know that investment craves for any foreign direct investment craves for peace and stability in the region. Ironically enough, there were 3 anniversaries yesterday on 5th August. It was the first anniversary of the overthrow of the Bangladeshi government. Then it was the second anniversary of the incarceration of Pakistani leader Imran Khan. And then it was the 5th anniversary. And then it was the 5th anniversary of the change of the constitutional status of Kashmir in India. So all of these factors point to a lot of restlessness and instability in the region. do you think China's initiatives or the engagements that you've referred to, can they realistically bear fruit in the presence of such restlessness and even hostility between the neighboring states?
Oh, thank you very much. I think this is really an important question. That the fifth day is very important here. In Bangladesh, the 5th of August, the change of government. Then Imran Khan also brought down on the same date, and of course the second important factor. And I see that if you look at the Chinese foreign policy in South Asia, it is primarily driven by their business interest. Of course, political stability is a big factor. They believe that if the country is not politically stable, China cannot do business with that. The Hasina government in Bangladesh was autocratic. Nobody would dispute that. But still, there was some sort of imposed stability that nobody was actually courageous enough to protest openly, publicly. Those who protested, they were simply captured, and their traces could not be found out anymore. So disappearances that happened in the society. But still, the Chinese business community, they preferred this particular environment. Whenever the government fell, completely collapsed on the 5th of August last year, you know who fled the country after Hasina did? The Chinese business community. Many of them left Dhaka, left Bangladesh en masse. And we are actually surprised what was the reason. And I have some Chinese friends. I talked to them that those businessmen, they actually were frightened. They were scared too much because political instability would unleash more violence. And more violence means more destruction, killings in the society. So the Chinese people are not used to this particular political environment. But now after that, our chief advisor, Professor Mohammed Yunus, Dr. Mohammed Yunus, he visited China. Just in July in June, and we had very fruitful discussions with the Chinese government. But still, actually, I believe that China has kept Bangladesh on a watch list to see how the political developments progress in this country, because Chinese society, you know, it's an authoritarian society. It's not democratic at all by any Western standard. So in that society, the Chinese people are used to top-down social order. The order comes from the top. It must be implemented down to the bottom level. So that's the Confucius values, the cultural framework in China. So politics, democracy, the Chinese business community, they are less and less interested. They believe that if the country has stability, then it's okay. They are free to do business. Now, comparing this situation with Pakistan, I think Imran Khan was toppled, as we understand, from outside Pakistan, not because it was less democratic, it was autocratic, but because it had unresolvable conflicts with the Pakistan military. And Imran Khan, as a bright star cricketer, was already known to the people all over South Asia and beyond. So he was also very independent-minded. And his foreign policy was not the type of foreign policy to be lined up behind Western dictates. So he actually openly accused of the European countries, of the US, of dictates that they would like to get some specific interest from Pakistan. And probably he was not that much tactful, because he could have avoided visiting Russia at that time. That visit actually came as a suicidal incident for him, I believe personally, from this part of the world. So in foreign policy, you need to be tactful more. It's not that what you believe in and what you are going to implement. Even if you have a particular belief, you do that tactfully, not really going in public opposition, in overt and covert opposition to other countries. So like in Bangladesh, you know that any government that is publicly pro-Indian would not be tolerated in Dhaka, because we would topple that government down. Any government that is hostile to India would not be able to survive in Dhaka either. The reason is that India would not allow the government to survive. So that means we must maintain some kind of middle ground, not tilting too much to China, not tilting too much to India and the US, but balancing and hedging depending on the realities. So that is the political course, the foreign policy course for Bangladesh. But anyway, autocracy is autocracy, and other events are different from autocratic management. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Zishan Hashim has a question. Please, Zishan.
Yeah, and thank you, Professor. It was really insightful. My question is related to the influence of China with compared to the influence of United States, means in South Asia. Like if I give example, for a long time, Pakistan is convincing United States that means its relationship with China is not in competition with its relationship with United States. So Pakistan is always trying to say that I'm balancing the approach, like relationship with China, relationship with United States. And I feel like the other South Asian countries are also trying to make it like, because they are also depending on United States and also they are creating more dependency on China. So do you think they're actually creating balance or they are going more towards China?
I think there is no common answer here that will be applicable to all countries, but the case will vary from one country to another country. So use example of Pakistan. We know that Pakistan, although it says that it is maintaining some kind of a balanced relationship, but both economically and militarily, it has actually a visible tilt towards China. And Chinese weapons, as we saw in the latest round of armed conflict between India and Pakistan, Chinese weapons actually proved very effective and very operational to face the Indian air assault and also the missile assault. So, and Pakistan already got F-16 fighter jets from the US, but the Americans usually attach some kind of preconditions. You cannot use our weapons even in a war without our permission. Now, India has attacked Pakistan. Should Pakistan seek American permission? By that time, India will conquer Pakistan. So is that the reality? The Pakistan is going to embrace and accept? So that's why we in Bangladesh believe that American weapons, although we get it, but it will not be proved successful in times of our national crisis. So better that let's go to China. And China is actually appreciated much because it never seeks any interference. It is not after interference in domestic politics of all other South Asian countries. As I told you, it believes in business, in the promotion of business interest. So any country interested to do business with China is the most welcome. And we welcome China because India and the US, they want political and strategic commitment from us without providing the required public goods we need to develop the country, improve the life quality of our people. You know, still a large portion of our people live under poverty. So we want to lift these people out of poverty with Chinese help. From China, we get generous economic assistance. But can we really trade just Chinese generous assistance for American and Indian political expectations? It's not really realistic. So economically, there is no way but to develop closer ties with China. The Americans, the Indians may call it a China tilt policy. We don't mind. But this is the reality for us, that we need Chinese assistance, Chinese cooperation to develop our country. But yes, of course, politically, historically, culturally, we are much closer to China. Before 1947, the whole Indian subcontinent was a single political entity. After 1947, two politically independent states. After 1971, another independent state emerged, and that is Bangladesh. So this is the reality. We have to live with this particular reality. Now, if the BJP comes up with the slogan "Akhand Bharat, Undivided India," who is going to listen to BJP? We got independence not because to give up independence to BJP domination. And the same is true of Pakistan. They are not going to surrender to Indian demand, right? Pakistan is maintaining its independent status. Now, out of all South Asian countries, Pakistan has more strategic autonomy. This is a fact of life, because Pakistan has effectively got rid of the Indian orbit. And it is difficult for us in Bangladesh. Very difficult for us. Our geographic predicament. Look, we are surrounded by India from all sides, except 176 kilometers of borders with Myanmar. And that country never stays in our memory. We don't even remember Myanmar as our neighbor, because culturally, politically, economically, it is much disconnected from us. It is only the Rohingya issue that brought us closer to each other. And we never succeeded in negotiating a solution of the Rohingya refugee crisis. The people from Myanmar, they come, they negotiate. Whenever they sit with us around the round table, negotiating table, they agree with us. But once they go back, they forget everything. So that's a big problem with them. They never actually honor the commitment they make. So now see that, how the tilt or not tilt. If it serves our interest, why not? Close economic relations with China. If it does not serve, we will go to other countries. But the Americans should not really mind it. America has a battle with China to fight, but they should not make us actually victims of this competition with China. This is completely unethical, immoral on their part. But still, you see, by imposing 35% tariff rates, they actually forced us to delink from China. But delink is no option for us. Neither it is an option for Pakistan. Never. It cannot actually be the option. I hope I have been able to give some reasons.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm very happy that I don't see any questions, so that I can put the questions that I have in my mind. Dr. Erum, I was actually intrigued by your mention of the omission of women, or that they were receiving very few awards from China. What do you actually think? Is it the lack of opportunities for women to rise in Pakistan and to do well professionally in Pakistan, or does it have something to do with the patriarchal structure of the Chinese society? What do you blame it on?
To be honest, there are multiple factors. Thank you for the question. There are multiple factors. So like I said, for me, the first time the issue was flagged up was when I saw the CPEC Outstanding Worker Award. And I noticed names on there, which actually was very good, because they included names from all over Pakistan, including people from other religious minorities. And I thought, that's really good. You know, religious minorities have been recognized, but no women. And this is supposed to be a game changer for Pakistan. And that's when I realized it's because gender equality, which both China and Pakistan have signed up to as the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, was never included in CPEC. It was all about energy. And the argument, and this was something Chinese officials like Li Jianzhao recognized, that it was not included in CPEC. And they were hoping that perhaps by phase 2, when industrial policies, you know, the special economic zones will be in action, that it more or less, you know, you will see something there. So for me, what the awards did was it highlighted the gender gap in their relations also in terms of the narrative. So the moment at the start of CPEC in 2013, the narrative started to emerge from the Chinese side of iron brothers, Pakistan, China, iron brothers, to the extent that Tehmina Janjua, Pakistan's first foreign secretary, went to China, and her first interview said, President Xi Jinping is wrong. It's not just about iron brothers. Steel sisters are also interested in CPEC. So she made a point to note that, you know, enough of this iron brother, and let's talk about, you know, an inclusive iron friendship, maybe perhaps. So yes, there is a problem. Now, is it because of the Chinese patriarchal society? So they do have an issue whereby patriarchy runs there. I mean, you just have to look at the leadership in the CCP. It's a very male dominated it's a very male dominated sphere. But gender equality was something which was highlighted very early on by Mao Zedong even. If you remember, he spoke about half of the sky, that we have to include half of the sky of China, so in order for China to develop and succeed. So I think societal influences are also there. But I've also followed the work of academics, Chinese academics and lawyers, who argue that within China's Belt and Road initiatives, even though they are working outside China, because they are state-owned, and some of the charters or legal issues that China has signed up to include gender equality, by law they have to include gender equality in their policy. So I thought, right, so if you are employing people, for example, for CPEC and Chinese company, why can't you make sure that the gender equality is there? But for the Chinese side, it also depends on what the host country is asking. If the host country is not interested, then it will be difficult for the Chinese to come into it alone. So I think this is something which has mixed connotations. So it's not just patriarchal societies included, the governments have to come in, but it's also something you need to see up front, that we need to make this an issue. I mean, just recently, I think it was the World Bank which has released the gender gap data. Unfortunately, Pakistan has now landed on the bottom. It is absolutely the last in gender equality, especially when you're having a major project. To be honest, the only show running so far in Pakistan is CPEC. And if in despite of all of that, you still come at the bottom, what's going on? Alarm bells should be ringing. Pakistan's half of the sky. What is happening with them? So yeah, it's an area of concern for me.
Thank you very much. Mohammed Azim Sarwar has basically added to what you've already alluded to, what you've already addressed. I'm afraid we are coming to the end of our session. Very insightful. I'm highly grateful to our worthy speakers. It was very insightful. I am thankful to both of you for taking time out of your busy schedules. And I also take this opportunity to thank all the participants for attending this webinar and making it a success. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, you can always email to the worthy participants after the session. Thank you very much. We call it a day. I'm highly grateful on behalf of PRISA.